Hi, I'm Mark, and I'm going to talk about Transcendentalism. Transcendentalism can be referred to as an idealist point of view, and it's actually been called idealism by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson was one of the starters of the Transcendentalist movement in the mid-19th century, and he wrote essays and gave lectures that outline the Transcendentalist mindset. A piece from Emerson that I want to focus on is The Transcendentalist, and it's taken from a lecture that he gave on nature. In this lecture, Emerson refers to Transcendentalists as idealists, and he refers to non-Transcendentalists as materialists, and he does this to draw a contrast between the two. Emerson drew a contrast between the two when he stated, "The materialists insist on facts, on history, on the force of circumstances, and the animal wants of man. The idealists on the power of thought and of will, on inspiration, on miracle, on individual culture. These two modes of thinking are both natural, but the idealist contends that his way of thinking is in higher nature." Now from this, I take that the idealist, which also acts as the transcendentalist, is a lot more spiritual and conscious based than the materialist in terms of their thinking. External structures of society don't influence the transcendentalist. The transcendentalist is more influenced from the internal consciousness and their individual thoughts. As you can expect, transcendentalists would rather separate themselves from society to find their own way, their own path. A good example of this habit would be Henry David Thoreau. He removed himself from society to go live in the woods. He demonstrated this need for individual culture. Now that we have a better understanding of some of the more common transcendentalist mindsets and habits, I want to bring up Chris McCandless. Chris was probably one of the most devout, or should I say, extreme transcendentalists. He chose to abandon his friends, family, basically everything in his society. Now this ranged anywhere from completely cutting off all connection with his family to burning his own money and all other forms of identification that he had. Pretty much everything that he had in his old life, he chose to get rid of so that he could start a new one. Ultimately, he traded a life of financial stability for life as a drifter, leisurely wandering around the United States for a few years. And the reason that Chris gave for all of this was that he was in search of the truth, and he mentioned that in his journal that he kept with him. Now this truth that he was looking for, it was very important to him, but it wasn't easy for him to find it. He had to push his physical and his mental limits to find it, and who knows if he did. Chris died alone in the wilderness, so no one will ever know if he ever found out that truth that he was looking for. But his death is besides the point. The point is that he left everything behind and consciously went out and made his own path. And that's what makes him a true transcendentalist. There's no materialist, someone that Emerson would describe as someone who insists on facts, on history, on the force of circumstances that would go out and do what Chris did. Not even Henry David Thoreau would go as far as Chris, and he contributed more to the Transcendentalist movement than Chris actually did. Overall, Chris demonstrated Transcendentalism more than any of us regular people of society ever could. Thanks for watching.